We welcome you to the World Awakenings podcast. Before we start, we'd like to tell you about a special ebook written by the show's host, Carl Gruber.
While you wait, call our office if you or someone you love is having difficulty communicating due to hearing loss. 740-654-3571. Strong relationships built on service from people you know and trust. Jones & Company, certified public accountants and financial services. And now, save on many of our 30th anniversary specials. Visit Reese Flowers and Fine Gifts today. Your holiday flower and fine gift idea store.
Happy to be talking with you today about a very important subject. The subject is interview skills. Before we get into the meat and potatoes of this, I'd like to point out a couple of interesting perspectives that I want you to consider as we get started. The first piece of perspective that I'd like to offer is to let you know that if you've been called in to interview for an internship, you already have a little piece of power in this situation. Now, the way I describe it is, it's not power over the person who you're talking to, obviously, but you do know that these folks have an opening, and you know that the skills that you've learned at OCB and the connections that you've made are very important. So this offers a great value to this person. And you also offer value to the organization. So your confidence is really a key when you meet the person who you'll be interviewing. Preparation for your interview obviously begins at home. Hopefully, as soon as you got the phone call to come in for the interview, you immediately got online and did some research. Find out something about the company. If possible, find out some information about the person who you'll be interviewing with. Both of these pieces of information should be readily available online. Have you ever Googled yourself? You might be surprised. Take this information and use it sparingly. You may know a whole bunch of stuff about the person and the company. You may only get an opportunity to use one or two small facts. But coming in armed with those facts could be essential if there's a lull in the conversation. Remember that they will ask you questions, and at some point along the line, you might have an opportunity to ask them a question as well. So once again, it's a matter of preparation. If you can think in terms of good, solid ideas relevant to what the radio station or the television station is doing, for instance, as far as community service, this might be a really good place to start. So what happens with folks who are not prepared for their interview? Many times what they will do is they will default to certain topics. For instance, the weather. Boring, truly. Everybody experiences the weather, and we obviously need to move past that into the meat and potatoes of our professional conversation. Something else to avoid, any mention of religion or politics. No matter what your feelings are or what you might observe in the person's office, it's a really good idea to leave these topics neutral and stick to business, what you can offer and the value that you bring to their organization. You have to think in terms of first impressions. The old saying is, you never get a second chance to make a first impression, and it's the truth. Actually, most people in this life make up their mind about the person who they're meeting sometime within the first 10 seconds of that meeting. I know, that's pretty quick. So during that time, you want to present the absolute best that you can. How do you go about this? Well, as you walk into the room, you obviously want to be dressed professionally. For men, that means sports jacket, and because it is a professional situation, you might want to consider wearing a necktie. Even if this is not your normal style, it generally indicates that you understand what professional dress is all about. For women, the important thing to remember is to dress for respect. This doesn't necessarily mean that you have to dress up like you're going to a formal, but keep in mind that low-cut blouses or dresses, extremely short dresses, and even things like open-toed shoes can really convey the wrong message when you're going to interview. So keep that simple axiom in mind. Dress for respect. If you have any doubts, go back to the closet and find something that eliminates that doubt. Now, obviously, it's important to pay attention to personal hygiene. Shaving is very important for guys. You're not going for a GQ interview. You're going in a situation where you may be looked at and assessed by a variety of people. So keep that in mind. Having too much cologne on, for men and women, is a real dangerous thing to do. Even though your friends may like it, your partner may like it, there's a very good chance it could give the entire wrong impression to the person who you're interviewing with. And you really don't want to risk that. So my advice is to avoid cologne for both men and women. By the same token, if you have facial jewelry, it's a very good idea to remove it for the 15 to 20 minutes that you'll be having this interview. All it does is it makes one less thing for the interviewer to get past. Now, they may have facial jewelry themselves, but keep in mind, they may not be the ultimate decision maker when it comes to bringing you on board. So if you have tattoos that are obvious, cover them. If you have facial jewelry, remove it, at least for your interview process. Okay, the concept of showing up for your interview. Once again, we go back to something that is universal. In our business, if you're on time, you're probably late. If you're early, you're on time. Think about that for a second. It's not that difficult. So arrive a little bit early. This could be enhanced by doing a little bit of research. If you're not exactly sure where you're going or where parking might be available, give yourself an extra half hour. And if you show up at the location and you're 10 minutes early, gives you a few minutes to sit, relax, and gather your thoughts before you go into your interview. Once you're in your interview, one of the worst things that could possibly happen is you found a great momentum, conversation is going great, and all of a sudden, the cell phone goes off. Just the fact of having your phone go off during the interview can be enough of a distraction to totally ruin your train of thought and the momentum that you might be gaining in your conversation with your potential employer. Once again, let's talk about that crucial first 10 seconds, that time for making your first impression. Something that's universal with all human beings is a smile. A second thing is a firm handshake. Now, the handshake needs to be firm, but not too firm. And obviously, it needs to be a dry handshake. Understanding that you may be a little bit nervous in this context, you want to make sure that you, at the very least, give it a good wipe before you hand them your hand. And again, eye contact and a smile can go an awful long way. If you are looking around the room or addressing the person and looking down at the floor, the impression will not be a positive one because they're going to wonder what's really going through your mind. And they'll probably wonder if you're really a good candidate for the position. So keep those first few seconds in mind. Take a deep breath as you walk in, put a smile on your face, extend your hand, and give them a smile. Okay, so what are we talking about here, folks? We're talking about selling yourself. Good salespeople are good researchers. We've already discussed that. Good salespeople, more importantly, are good listeners. Make sure that you listen to the questions. that your interviewer is asking you, and take a moment, if it's necessary, to respond appropriately to the question that they've been asked. Many times, it's a habit of folks to jump in before the question is even finished. Oftentimes, that can be extremely irritating. Also, there's a habit of folks who will listen to part of a question and then they'll go, yeah, I got that. That also can be something that can turn a positive conversation in the wrong direction. So we mentioned that good salespeople are good listeners. They do their research. And more importantly, if you want to become a great salesperson in selling yourself, you always ask for the sale. If you don't ask, many times they're not obligated to give you anything. So good luck and success.